Let's start our session for today. Today's topic is the road ahead, cybersecurity in 2021 and beyond. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Yogwrat Mehta, and I'm an assistant professor at Sage University Indore. I would like to welcome everyone. So we'll be talking today about the cybersecurity and a little bit about Sage University Indore too. So let me just share my screen and you all can see what presentation I have for you guys today. I hope the screen is visible to everyone. Can everyone see the presentation? Okay, let's go ahead with the presentation. As I told you, welcome from Sage University Indore, and I'm representing the same group. We are an education institute located in Indore and Bhopal. And this university has been thriving under our visionaries, respected Honorable Chancellor Engineer Sanjeev Agrawal sir, our Pro-Chancellor Dr. Prashant Jain sir, our Executive Director of Operation Ma'am Ms. Shivani Agrawal and Ms. Sakshi Agrawal ma'am. So under their vision, we have been thriving in the field of education, providing the best to the students and to the future generation. But as we know, vision is incomplete without advisories. So we have got advisory board, and the members of our advisory board are from different fields. One of them is a big entrepreneur, Mr. Vivek Bindra. One of them is management guru, Sri N. Raghuraman. One of them is a spiritual speaker, Pandit Shankar Mataji. And we have got some advisory board from academics, from international universities. So we have a very diverse advisory board which helps us to guide, to get to the future and to look at the future and work towards it. Few awards and achievement received by Sage University Indore. We have and our institute, our individual institutes also have received awards from various organizations for their academics and for the infrastructure, as you can see over here. Few glimpses of our campus. This is our main building. This is for law and legal studies. This is our culture lab, tissue culture lab, library facilities. We have fully furnished. We've got canteen. We've got different facilities, as you can see in the corner. It's Apple certified lab. So, like, why we are? Because we are here to discuss cybersecurity. So it will help to understand that we work in both operating systems in Windows as well as OS. We have got all the facilities needed, hostel facilities and sports, gym and everything. Here are 14 institutes, as you can see over here, and they offer various courses in diploma, UG and PG courses. And the one we will be talking about specifically, we will be talking about cybersecurity today, and that comes under Institute of Advanced Computing. That because we have our regular core, computer science core also, but our artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and data science comes under advanced computing course. These are our knowledge partners. As you can see, the one we will be discussing today is cybersecurity and forensics. It's at number 12, and that we have a tie-up with Quick Heal. I will talk about it later in this webinar. So this was a brief about Sage University Indore, about our infrastructure, what we offer, and all these things. These are our USPs. We have got labs. We have got labs for different institutes. We have been provided funding for the research. We have been given awards, and as well as we have got training centers that helps students to go for different trainings as well as for the entrepreneurs to pursue their own dream. These are affiliation, academic, and industry partners over here. Benefits of studying at Sage. So yeah, we will be discussing all these in detail at the end. So let's start with we have got student activity cells also, just to make sure that whoever students come to the university, they just don't have their interest in the academics, they grow overall, they have their development, overall development as a personality, so they can participate in different cells, different clubs, where they can develop their personality, perception, learning, and attitude. These are a few activities conducted by our student activity cell. And all these comes under SAGE Student Ambassador, in which we have our own students as president, vice president, secretary, deputy secretary, and others, because they are the one who plans, executes, and promotes. This helps them grow their leadership and teamwork qualities that helps them in the future in their career. Now, why we are here to the road ahead, cybersecurity in 2021 and beyond. This is the most important thing we were discussing. So I would like to welcome everyone again. So because we are here, you guys all will be listening to me for another 40 minutes probably with this topic. So let me start with a very interesting story about how one found a copy of the very first PC virus in a floppy. Because here before going into the future, we will see the past and present of cybersecurity, how it evolved, what were the challenges it faced. Because we have to know, if in order to see the future, in order to realize how important the topic is, we need to know the past also. So it's a very small, interesting story that very few people were investigating the virus that was called Brain.A, if you ever search, Brain.A. So they found that hidden within the boot sector of every infected floppy disk. And inside the floppy disk, hidden in the middle of the code, was a piece of text. You see, very previously, these floppies were being used. I don't know, you must have seen these floppy drives, floppy disks or not, but these were used before the CD drives. And they found a virus inside the boot sector of this floppy drive. And inside the code, if you see the code over there, which said, and inside a piece of code, there was a piece of text that said 1986, Basit and Amjad, and that listed an address, Nizam Block, Allama Iqbal, Lahore, town Lahore, which is a city in Pakistan, as we all know. So inside this virus code, this was the message written into them. So the people who were investigating this virus, they flew to Pakistan and they traveled to Lahore, went to the particular town and knocked on the door on the address listed on the first PC virus in history. And inside they found Basit and Amjad. And these are the guys who wrote the very first PC virus. Many of you don't even know, but this is the fact that they wrote the first PC virus and they left the Brain.A with them, that they left that same floppy drive with them. But they had a very interesting discussion about the birth of this problem, the birth of malware, birth of PC viruses. These guys were, of course, much younger in 1986 when they wrote the first PC virus, and they were basically just trying to prove how insecure the new PCs were compared to mainframes and other stuff these guys had been working with before IBM PCs started going around the world. So they were just trying to prove a point or just trying to see other things. And I guess they did prove a point. Their virus went around the world, infected systems in more than 50 different countries, and started this whole problem. And these guys complain how they are so fed up because they are nowadays getting infected by all kinds of malware regularly on their computers. And of course, it's their own fault because they started the whole program. But as this problem got started back then in 1986, we have gone through many different revolutions of malware. And one interesting detail or outlier in the history of malware is a virus called AIDS Information Trojan, if you must have heard or read about this thing. So that came in 1989. That was 3 years after the Brain.A virus. And this is interesting because this is the first ransomware Trojan in history like ransomware like WannaCry or Petya, the two biggest cases from previous years. So ransomware, in the sense that it locks your data, it locks you out of your own data and asks you to pay to get your files back. In this case, it wasn't distributed over the internet because it was mailed in letters to subscribers of, I think it was a PC World or a PC Magazine. So they got these mail, and it claimed to be a useful application which would rank your risk of getting infected by this new disease called HIV. That time it was new. And it would work. You would install it in your PC and it would ask you questions and rank your risk. But it would also, after 5 or 6 or 7 days, start encrypting your hard drive. And then it would show you a ransom note. When you would boot up the machine wouldn't stop. Instead, it would show you a ransom note which was asked you to pay money by sending it to as a money order to a PO box in Panama. And this is surprisingly like the Petya ransom Trojan or like any other very common Trojans that we see today. And that really is a decade of time between these two cases. But ransomware isn't a new problem. This is a complete outlier. I mean, in 1989, AIDS information Trojan was pretty much the only ransom Trojan we saw until few years ago. But these ideas keep coming back in bites. If you think back then how things evolved from these old floppy-based viruses, well, these were only infecting boot sectors. So they would get infected by forgetting a floppy disk inside your computer and booting the computer up. Because in previous times, the computer had a floppy and CD drives. Nowadays, there are CD drives available in the system, but there are no floppy drives. So it used to work like that. If it's a PC, it starts executing code from boot sector of the floppy, and that's how you get infected. Whilst it's in your hard drive, then it will infect every floppy you use. And in Macs, previously they still used to run OS X running system as their operating system. So they would get infected by just inserting a floppy. Mac would automatically execute the piece of the code from the floppy just by inserting it. So you didn't have to reboot from it like you did with PC. But quickly, we started seeing file infectors which would be spreading over networks. And eventually, they would start spreading over the internet as the internet became commonplace. And then we started to enter the time of email worms. As we all know, like in 1990s, emails started going around. So they were all about email worms. And if you know and you probably remember a large outbreak, like you must have read somewhere about Melissa or Love Letter, also known as I Love You. They were the biggest email worms outbreaks, and these were from 1999 and 2000. And the spreading mechanism in these was very simple. They would infect a single user. They would gain access to his email application, typically Outlook, Windows, or Microsoft Outlook. And then they would send themselves as or in the name of the owner of the computer to everyone listed in the address book. So you can easily see how this works. If you know someone, you suddenly get an email from him from his email address with his name, sending something to you, and you know him because you are in his address book. So it's highly likely you trust him, or at least in many communications, that's going to happen. And if there's an attachment, you're going to open it, and the attachments Love Letter and Melissa used were Word documents. They were using Word macros, later known as Visual Basic for applications. If you are interested in computers and you know Visual Basic for applications. So, which is a programming feature inside Office applications. And if you look at early macro-based viruses, they are just macros inside Word documents. And this is very similar to what what we see today. We are seeing macro-born malware even today with today's users and like almost in 2021, which is quite remarkable. Microsoft thought they already fixed this problem once when these early macro viruses like Melissa and Love Letter were going around. They did it by disabling macros by default in Office applications. However, macros are still there. They are just disabled by default. So what we are seeing nowadays is macro-born attacks, where users get a Word or Excel documents, which will then talk them through enabling macros. So they were, for example, tell that this is a classified document, very important classified document, and you are very important because you received this. And now you must decrypt it by enabling content. So please click the enable content button. People are social engineered into enabling macros back, and we go back to the same problem we had in 1999. So these were email worms that I was talking about. Now the next gen into the world of web worms or internet worms, things which would spread over the internet without using email. And I guess the best known first example of this would be Code from 2001. I just hope like all these things I'm telling you, you might be noting it down and reading it later for more knowledge. So Code from 2001. So there's a small picture. You can see how Code went around the world on July 19, 2001. Well, that's pretty much the current internet or where service existed at the time. And you can see the growth rate got exponential as enough computers got infected. And this basically happened over 24 hours. Code Red was bad, but what followed next was even worse. We had a row of similar internet-born worms like Slammer and Blaster. And of these, Slammer broke the world record. It went through every single IPv4 address on the planet in 17 minutes from the moment when it was launched. Probably like if anyone was online during that time, when Slammer was unleashed, so they scanned their IP addresses. It scanned the IP address of every server you had, every workstation you had. If you had a like that time, if someone had a phone that was connected to the internet, so that would have scanned that too, also that device also. And if you had a vulnerability, it could exploit, it would infect your system, and it was all done in 17 minutes. In 17 minutes, it had already done everything. It had already infected every system it could infect in the world. This is quite remarkable. Now, Slammer, Sasser, and Blaster were all Windows-based malware cases. And the way they would typically manifest themselves to the victims, to the users who were running these computers, that they would get an error message from Windows itself. Because these were typically exploiting the PC processors, which are Windows system processors. When you exploited them at the time, those processors would die, and these are critical Windows processors. So what happens is you will get this error message, and it says you have 60 seconds to save your work, then Windows will reboot. And it happened commonly with a lot of people who were using computers at that time. So it's just, there's nothing you can do to prevent this. There's no cancel button. If you see over here, you have 60 seconds to save your stuff, and then it goes to reboot. Well, imagine that you being hit by that blaster in 2003. You get this, your machine reboots, all right, you continue work. Eventually, it's going to happen again. You're still online, you still have the vulnerability after an hour, you see it again, after an hour again, and you're going to see more and more frequently as there are more and more infected machines on the planet scanning more and more. So eventually, you're going to go and ask for help. You will say, like, say my machine is acting funny, it's rebooting all the time, what should I do? And someone's going to tell you that, yeah, there's a vulnerability, you must patch it. Now, this happened in 2003. There is not internet, there's no Windows update. So the way you update is that you take your browser, that time Internet Explorer, and you would go manually surf to Microsoft and go and search for the update. You find the update there, and then you have the button to click. Let's download it. Let's save it to the desktop as you would. And you start downloading it. So this is how people were updating their system at that time. But while you are downloading it, you are still vulnerable. So it's more than likely that while you are downloading it, it's going to take a while to download, and you will get the same error message as you saw earlier. And now you have two counters on your screen. One is counting down, like 60 seconds before you reboot. One is counting up, how finished your download is. It's a very, very frustrating game which was being played by thousands and thousands of users all over the world. And of course, in many cases, they lost this. And this really was the turning point for Microsoft. They started demanding better security, and Microsoft pretty much turned around. I mean, this is the turning point. This is when they were at the worst regarding security. And they stopped all new development for several months, put all their developers to go back and look at the old code basis, find vulnerabilities, fix stuff. Because that time, developers were the only ones who knew about the code, who knew about cybersecurity, and about fixing those bugs and everything. There was nothing like cybersecurity by that time. So you can imagine the problem that has been going on for years and how they were tackling all these things. And they started their trustworthy computing initiative and implemented well first Windows update to do automatic updates, and then all the other technologies that they have implemented since. And now, today I have no complaints about the security level of Microsoft. They used to be the worst. Clearly, they learned from it, those dark years. And during the same year, we found another important virus because all these cases were being investigated during that time. So when they were run, and another outbreak that was in 2003 was a malware called Fizzle, which isn't remarkable by its technological features, but is remarkable because this is the beginning of the money making with malware. Now, yes, we did mention the outlier, the A's information Trojan from 1989. Yes, that also tried to make money, but in fact, the owner of that virus was caught and prosecuted. Like, he didn't know. So malware in general wasn't trying to make money. All these cases that we have seen so far were whole bees who were writing viruses for fun. And then this changed with Fizzle. Fizzle, which was the first cooperation between email worm authors and email spammers. So Fizzle would infect many computers, and then those computers would start sending spam. This is how spammers started to go around spam filters and blocking of their servers. They couldn't send spam from the servers because they were being blocked. So what it is, so they would start sending spam from other people's computers, from their workstations, from their home computers, which were infected by this virus. So this is how money making started. The mortar of the money making with malware started. And since then, we have seen an unlimited amount of banking Trojans and credit card stealing malware, botnets which make money by launching service attacks against the website, and then you must pay if you want to stop the attack. So all the attacks that we see today with cryptocurrencies are like one of the creative techniques which we see with the cryptocurrency malware, which is that there's hundreds of malwares right now which only monitor your clipboard. Just want to understand one thing, what clipboard. And if it detects that you have copied a name called Bitcoin or anything else, it changes to a different address. So when you copy someone's number or someone's UPI ID when you're doing financial transactions, if it finds out, while copying and pasting that thing, they changes some of the alphabets, changing some of the numbers just to make the transaction to that particular destination. So because when we are copying and pasting, we are not making sure that it's the same thing we copy pasted. We just paste it and make the transaction. So we have to be aware that what's going on. And a year after Fizzle, we then found the Configure, which was several years after. That was the most common malware in the world. One of the biggest cases in the history since 2009. Then we found Zeus, which was one of the biggest banking Trojan cases in the history. What happened was the Zeus botnet and related malware was being used to target more than 100 different banks around the world, stealing money from people's accounts as they were doing online banking. And here, the attacks the banks were being targeted with. It's important to understand that the banks were not the target. It was the consumers who were the target. So what they did was, like, if you want to steal money from online banks, you can try to hack the bank. If you get in, okay, that's where the money is. So you can steal your million if you get in the bank. But it's hard because banks put a lot of effort to keep everybody out. So what was easier for them was not to hack the bank, but to hack, let's say, 1,000 of the bank's customers. Now, home users, small and medium companies, they also do online banking. So if you gain access to their systems, then you can steal money from their accounts. And of course, they don't have 1 million in their accounts. So what they do is, They have 1,000 users, they have 1,000 accounts they hack, and out of those 1,000 accounts, if you deduct or if you take out $1,000 each, that's your million, and it's much easier to do that way. So over the years, I have read at least 10 cases or less than 10 cases where banks themselves were being targeted by attacks like this. It's almost always the bank's customers who get targeted. Initially, typically home users, now it is more and more corporate users, but now corporate users are also accessing online bank. And of course, we all know it's very common that they get those kind of attacks sometimes. While I was working with one of my companies before, I like, and I used to go with my senior to other companies for a visit. And what my senior liked to do when we go and visit some companies, that she asked them to show us around. Like, could somebody take us around and show us your facility and your company, and tell me what you're doing in a company? And they're always happy to show. Okay, here's our manufacturing department, design department, finance, sales guys, and all. And then she asked to see the financial department. Where's your finance people? All right, and that also means always that we go to the top floor or to the corner's office, say here's our CFO, here's our controller. So she meets everyone. Then she asks to see the person who pays the bills. So let's find that person. So far, every time it's been a middle-aged man or a lady, very nice person. If it's a big company, there are lots of people, and if it's a small one, it will be probably one. And then she chats with her about her work. What do you do? How she says, well, I pay bills and everything. And in the end, she asks, like, about other than all these work, where's your computer that you use for Facebook and YouTube or for surfing the internet? Where's that? And the lady generally gets confused, like, what does she mean? And you can see she's very confused. So she just points out at the same computer where she does her financial transactions. That's the point she always tried to make. That's the system they want to get their hands on. Like all the hackers or you can say the person who wants to do all these stuff, they want to get hands on that same computer from where the person does the financial transactions. And if they get a banking trojan on that machine, then they will win. And you can't completely seal that off from the internet. The person accesses the financial things from the same computer and surf on the internet, uses her social media from the same computer. So that gives them the risk that someone from the outside can send a virus, can access their system, and can access their financial things. So that is what happened. That's why she asked questions. She asked questions with every company official that what they do and how they used to do it. So this was just a small one. So, but the main important thing is in 2010 it was a very important year in malware history because it was the year when we found Stuxnet. This is a very common name, and I'm pretty sure most of you people know about Stuxnet because this changed the whole dynamics of the cybersecurity. And if you don't know, so I'll just have a small assignment for you that you can go and watch a movie called 0 Day, which is a documentary movie about Stuxnet. It tells exactly how this went down. Stuxnet, which was an operation by US government together with Israelis, that was targeting a Iranian nuclear program. That's what we know now. We didn't know that in summer 2010 because people don't know about cybersecurity by that time, which was the most paranoid summer, because they found that really weird, huge piece of malware, completely different from anything they have ever seen before. Like most malware was like small and encrypted, but this one, it wasn't trying to hide. It was hiding in plain sight, basically. It didn't look like malware at all. And to make it even weirder, it had this code embedded, which they had never seen before. Which they later learned that it was a ladder logic programming for PLC. You must have read about PLCs and all. So many brilliant minds were working on that. They just spent the summer trying to figure this out. And eventually they started to realize that, this is big. Like, this must be some governmental. This means must have cost millions to create something like this. So now, what did there was another person, like a German researcher, that found this fingerprinting part that changed the whole perspective, that changed the whole research on that. Because the fingerprinting was basically looking for high frequency power converters, which had to be in certain configurations. So with all these technical details, what he did is then the like what he was trying to figure out is like where it is being made, why is it being made, where it was targeted, and everything. So what he did is, since the attack was made in on Iranian nuclear facility, so no one expected to find it online just by searching on the web. But what he did is he just Googled it on like, is there any plant like this in Iran? When he found the code, except he found that in the Google result that there is a plant which is being affected, and they have the same configuration as it was mentioned in the code. So this German researcher, he went to the web page of Iranian president at that time. He went to the Iranian president's web page, and from this web page, believe it or not, he found a photo. Because this web page, as most presidential web pages, have pictures of their visit to different places, including visits to national nuclear sites. If you see over here, you could see him walking by the centrifuges, and these centrifuges are being spined by high frequency power converters, the things that Stuxnet is searching for. Now we don't see the converters, but we do see that they are in rows where there are 4 of them by each other. Then the actual stuff we can't see at all from anything physical. That's just logical. We don't really know this is the right place. So when you see over here, if we enhance, we'll see that it's the same sequence in the code of Stuxnet as in the photo, which was sequence in the code of Stuxnet, if you see over here. So I have encircled over here in the black oval shape on their system. So this was just a photograph clicked by for the president's visit, and from there they saw that this in their system. This is the kind of code they were looking for. So what happened was like this, and Stuxnet, but this really changed the playing field in many ways, and it opened the eyes of many other governments. Like, look at what the Americans are doing, and the Israelis are doing, and how come we are not doing this? And we ended up in arms race. We ended up in arms race, which are still today. We spent the last 6 years in nuclear arms race, and probably going to spend the next 6 years in cyber arms race. There are players in intelligence agencies and militaries like spies, and it's the most recent we know about Pegasus. So spying is about collecting information. Information has changed. Information used to be physical, it used to be on paper. So you had to physically go to the information to steal it or copy. And today, of course, it's not, it's just data. It's on your computers, on your networks, on your phone. You don't have to go anywhere to reach it. Therefore, the world of intelligence agencies has changed. And as we look at what's going on or going to happen in the upcoming years, it's increasingly hard to forecast the future. Nobody saw Petya or WannaCry, and those were the biggest cases in history. In fact, biggest worm outbreaks of the last decade. So we have only ever seen 2 malware outbreaks in history, which were combinations of ransomware, Trojan, and self-spreading worm technologies, which is exactly what both WannaCry and Petya did. But if you look beyond 1 or 2 years, let's say decades in future, then nobody knows what's going to happen. Like we have almost, if you know or not, that we have been developing quantum computers right now. And Google recently, like a few months back, they made an announcement on the new chips they have built, but that's all guesswork. One of the new chips they have built, but that's but one thing we all knew was the fact that in the past we all know about apocalypse. We all know about this. This is the 2038 counter problem in all Unix systems. It's practically in all Unix and Linux systems which calculate time as values of a signed 32-bit integer, which means it will go over on the 19th of February 2038, and I know what you are thinking. You're thinking that, well, that's way in the future. That's 17 years in the future. What do we care? Well, it's less than 17 years into the future, and they're already, let's say, bank systems which calculate interest for the next 20 years, which means they already hit, in theory, this problem. 17 years is not far. We saw that already. We saw that 21 years ago with Y2K. I don't know, you all people have read about Y2K or not, but I will suggest do read about Y2K. That's a very interesting thing. So, excuse me. At that time, we thought we had a plenty of time to fix this, and it turns out we got in quite a bit of rush and towards it. Like these are like the magazines in 1999. Crisis Countdown, Final Alert, Doomsday 2020. Like these are all the magazines, and then when the actual new year arrived, when we went from 1999 to 2000, and nothing happened. Nothing happened. False alarm, right? So let me tell you, it wasn't a false alarm at all. Instead, this was a massive success story. The people who were at that time during the 1999-2000 phase, you must ask them, the one in the technical field or maybe working. So what happened during that time? They must tell like, oh, nothing happened. But it tells a story of a success story. We were able to fix tons of stuff before, and even if there were problems, of course, they wouldn't show themselves exactly during the new year. You would find out about them much later. I will give you an example. The UK healthcare system had a Y2K problem in their systems that they were using to diagnose pregnant women. And because of this Y2K problem, healthy babies was aborted in UK during the year 2000. They figured this out in the summer of 2000, 6 months after it had started happening. So yeah, Y2K did cause problems. It wasn't a false alarm. And I'm telling you, in 2038 will cause problems. Yes, we have 17 years to go, but I will guarantee you we'll have problems in 2028. And you can have a look at it yourself. You all use mobile phones, right? After this webinar, just go ahead and try one thing I will tell you. You all have mobile phones. Go, take out your phone, go to the settings. You can change the date manually. You cannot change the date beyond 2038. Just make sure after the webinar, try it. Take your phone, go to the settings, change the date and time, try to change it manually. You cannot go beyond 2038 regardless of what phone you have. So it's very real. And when we look at what's going to happen with the internet itself, our internet originally was a haven of freedom, wasn't it? And now, at least to me, it seems to be that there's a fight over the control of the internet. Internet has become a tool for governments to shape people's opinions, to do surveillance on foreign people or their own people, to wage war, to spy. And this isn't really the internet we thought we were given. And I see this as our responsibility because we were given a free internet. Internet happened during our lifetime. So what we got was a free and open internet. The question is, what kind of internet are we going to give to our future generation? So with all these things, now we all know that now the future says that the IoT plus ICS. We all know about IoT. IoT means Internet Operating Things, Internet of Things. And I think IoT revolution or connected revolution really started from factories, from ICS systems. So this revolution of IoT plus ICS is important because everything is going online, everything is going digital, and all the things we are using, all the apparatus, all the equipments we are using, they are all going digital. Some must say, okay, there are a few things they are not going digital, they are still manual. Say, I will take an example of a toaster. If you people use toaster, you must see it's a manual thing. But if you see, it's not gone digital yet, but soon it will go as the time progresses because of the things going online, everything. So this is very important about IoT plus ICS we are talking, that as we know, things are going digital. Each and every single small equipment is going digital. So that is why the internet and security is really very important. Now, when we are talking about IoT and ICS, If you see over here, this is the numbers that in 2017, 2020, and 2030, the numbers have been increasing day by day, and the IoT is in almost everything. In your rooms, you can operate your TV, and you can operate your tube light. You can operate your even on your water taps. From they're all going IoT devices. So you can see the numbers have been increasing day by day, and probably in 2030 it will cross probably 25. So yeah, the things are going digital, and we need lots of security to make sure that no bad things happens. Now we all have read all these things when we are going to when we are signing up for any application, or even when you're signing any document related to any work, that I have read and agreed to the license agreement, accept terms and conditions. I'm pretty sure 99% of the people don't read the whole list of the agreement or the terms and conditions that are mentioned over there, because first of all they are very small in text. There are lots of points over there, and none of us read. So what we do is we just click on that, we accept the terms and continue. So this is what happens, that we do not read all these license terms and conditions. Now the perfect example I will tell you is about the Land Rover. What Land Rover is? Land Rover in control package terms and conditions. You see over here, they have those in terms and conditions that do not use or permit any other person to use the package in an unlawful manner. Because why I'm telling you the example of Land Rover is because these things were going on. They had the digital things over in their cars. So they had this terms and condition mentioned that you cannot upload anything, you cannot use it for any other purposes. So these were the terms and conditions that they mentioned in the Land Rover cars when they went to a little bit digital. And the next thing was when I heard about Porsche, that Porsche introduces blockchain to cars. Now, why do they need blockchain to cars? I was just thinking it doesn't even matter. It's just a car, it's running, and you don't want to introduce blockchain to the automobile industries. But why it was necessary is because what used to happen when the car runs, its odometer readings also runs. It get the odometer readings and all the history is gone to a server, and that server is maintained by AWS. In that server, every information is being stored, and with that information, your automobile record is stored, and that gives you suggestion that when to start the maintenance, which part to change, and what to do. But this thing actually helped many people, because what happened was when the odometer reading and all the details were stored on the server, and then when the user went to sell a car, and if they did some changes in the odometer, because we must have seen they decrease the miles or the kilometers on the odometer and then sell the car because they get a higher price. But if you have a blockchain you are using into the automobile industry, you have all the information on the server. You can just extract that information, compare it with the car which you are being buying or selling, and then you can make sure that there are no unlawful things that is being done. So this is very important. So as you can see, automobile industry is also getting digital. So all these things, as they are going digital, and much of the AI work is going on. So with that, cyber security comes also important. Now, with this, another example is about crypto miner. This is the most important topic that is being going on right now. What they used to do, a crypto miner, they used to do is, we all know about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and everything, and cryptocurrency mining is is done at a large scale nowadays, on an industrial level, and especially in China and Iceland, because in Iceland they have a good cooling and cheap electricity. They can use big systems over there. And in China, because in China government subsidizes the electricity, so it's cheap because of the subsidy system. So there was this German company called Program, and there was a website called program.de, which was basically fortune for German users and image boom. And what they did was they used to sell gold account to users. And many of the users didn't want to register with their real name. So they started accepting Bitcoin. And then eventually They innovated a new system for paying for the gold account. What they used to do, they used to mine cryptocurrency. They did not receive the cryptocurrency. In return, what they did is they got the gold account for themselves, and the cryptocurrency went to the company's website. But this was just a simple thing. Now again, a coin hive, similar to that idea, a new website was built, a coin hive. What coin hive used to do is a crypto miner for your website. So if you visit any of the websites where you need to create an account by paying some money, or you have to subscribe for anything, so what they used to do is they used to mine for you and give you that account. So this is how it used to do. They used to mining the cryptocurrency, and using those cryptocurrency, you can subscribe or create any account which needed financial transactions. So if you see, this is one of the newspaper websites, salon.com, on which that it says, we notice you are using an ad blocker. Okay, if you can disable it, or you can support ads. So here what they used to do is they used to mine on the background, and again after that it started working. So for a user, from a user's perspective, they needed that they got access to the website, they are using the website, but from the company who is mining those cryptocurrency, they got the cryptocurrency. So this is how it works in vice versa. Some people do found it wrongdoing, some allow it. So it depends on individual perspective that what they do and how they do it. As we see, these are the cryptocurrency, and you can see it's like in a quarter wise from 2014 to 2017 how it has been growing a lot, because this is what happens when we are talking about going digital every day. These are the companies, they were infected because of all these viruses. These are very big names that were being infected by those viruses, and the cryptocurrencies also, because they got many cryptocurrencies companies have helped them gain access to all these websites premium features. Now this is a familiar picture for many of us. We all know that these are all like uh, a machine from a Terminator movie. Many of you must have seen that movie. So this is about using the internet. How are we using the internet? Because everything is going robotics, everything is going AI, and we have to make sure that how to use it. There's an example like whenever we have seen many organizations or many people who have been using internet for their propaganda or for different purposes, illegal purposes. So what they do is they just use it for just spreading their message, but they are not using it to make more disruption. They are automating all these things. So with the machines, robotics, AI, everything is going digital, and we have to make sure that they don't turn against us. You must be remembering this movie Terminator, that the actor Arnold Schwarzenegger was fighting with the machines, and he was fighting with the robot because they were from the future. But it's not right. Because we have been advancing in both the fields regularly, in the developing field also as well in the security field also. So hopefully this will not happen. But this is just an example that things will be going artificial into the artificial intelligence, and they will be automated. We just have to accept the fact, because it's not okay with everyone. I will tell you one thing why everyone is not accepting the same things. When you see over there, we have seen Tesla is coming to India. We have seen many driverless cars, and we know a lot of people have their occupation as drivers in this country. And if you see, if the cars have been replaced by driverless cars, how it will affect themselves, their occupation. So it's very tough for them to make sure that we do not get infected. So that is how they will turn up against the machines. It's not about the advancement, but it's about how to manage ourselves with the advancement of those machines. So this is also we need to consider while we are talking about AI and cybersecurity. This is an example from another country. My friend used to live there, and I was talking to him about last summer. So if you see that yellow block on the black lid, it is actually a sensor. So what happened was, this sensor was made. This is an ILT sensor, and this was made by a startup company. So they used it on a trash bin, and because of that, many drivers had problems with that. So all I'm telling you is, it is going against machines because they are not accepting the fact. This is the ever-growing cybersecurity skills you have. These are all the features. We can see advancement is going on. Which field has advancement over here? This is this global cybersecurity market, as I'm telling you over here. And if you see, right now the North America is the largest market by region, but soon Asia Pacific region will be the largest market that will grow in this region. So there are lots of opportunities, and the best opportunities we are giving you is through our programs, our UG and PG programs in artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and data science. Our cybersecurity is with Quick Heal that have their own benefits like 100% job admission, certification, practical experience with professionals and all. So I hope this was beneficial for you people. We talked about cybersecurity past, present, and what are the future opportunities, what we offer, and what we have it to you. So do think about what's needed in the future. Do visit our website to see what opportunities we offer, what courses we offer, and let us know how we can help.